We want to be free. We want to do what we want to do. We want to have a good time. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a good time.
Welcome, foolish mortals, to a special episode of Bygone Bros being recorded on a dark and spooky night. How are you doing, Trevor?
I'm in a sufficiently spooky mood myself. I've got my orange lights running along the floor and various creepy things hung on the wall, which are always here, but there's even creepier ones now.
Excellent. To really get into the season. Yeah. In case you guys, viewers at home, couldn't tell, I am using a spooky candle as my lighting, so I have to be extremely careful that I don't laugh or exhale too hard, because if I do, my entire screen may go black. So this is a bit of an experiment. I hope I'm not giving anybody discomfort with sort of the flickering of this. Maybe if I do it even just a little bit off to the side, I don't know if that would help a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the vibe is still there. That's what's important.
The vibe is there, exactly, and I can't really do a campfire indoors, so we're using a candle as the next best thing. Yep. But we thought we would take this opportunity with the season to go over some bygone aspects of Halloween, as it's a very culturally significant activity and season, and all things between. And of course, it's changed in some ways a lot over the decades, and in other ways it's stood the test of time. So what would you like to start with, Trevor, as far as our discussion of Halloween and the Bygone Bros context?
Sure. Well, I think a big part of it is the rituals and the activities that we've developed over time, at least in certain parts of the world, that are associated with that holiday, that kids in particular, people of all ages, but kids really, in parts of the country like we grew up in, get ingrained in them from a young age. The dressing up in costumes, so whether it's classic figures or whatever the flavor of the year is for movies and stuff. Parties with friends. I know for us, hitting a piñata was a big deal. Doing donut on a string, having someone eat a donut off a string that's hanging over them, pretty self-explanatory. Apple bobbing, similar thing, just people debasing themselves to get food, which is what part of it's all about, with the candy and of course the trick-or-treating. If done well and safely, I think that's something that really was a great experience.
Oh, yeah, and we can definitely get into some of our particular traditions that we did as kids growing up over the years. But yeah, definitely Halloween, I feel, is one of the biggest things for a kid to look forward to. I mean, you've got, of course, the fun of this spooky kind of scary stuff that's exciting, but you've got also, the costumes, the dressing up. There's a lot of sort of imagination and pretending and becoming other characters, and of course candy, copious amounts of candy, which kids can't get enough of sugar, so this is an excellent occasion to really increase your sugar intake. But I mean, in our family it was definitely no exception. You'd mentioned a couple of things that we would do as traditions, and for us it was always going to the grandparents. We would go up to their house, which was kind of up in the hill, almost up in the woods. So in a way it had sort of a spooky atmosphere to begin with, and then it was also quite a big house with lots of different rooms, so it felt sort of like how you'd imagine a haunted house, with all of these different places that you could go into, and we would go completely ham on the decor, so there'd be tons of cobwebs and skeletons and witches. We had like a big kind of cartoonish looking witch head that would, like, I think it was a motion sensor or something, and it would like scream at you like when you walked by it, so it was actually like startling.
I would always get really anxious with the motion sensing stuff.
Yeah. And we had this like weird tradition of it was a paper skeleton. It was completely made out of paper, and the joints of it were like these little metal almost like pins that would hold it together. And we had this family rocking chair that had been passed down through all these generations. So we had like very certain decorations like that skeleton that would be in particular places every year, and they would have stories around them. So that one, was supposedly our great grandfather. That was this skeleton that we put up in this chair, which was kind of morbid actually, but different decor like that was always fun to put back in its place each Halloween season. And we had kind of a tradition too, if I recall, of we were in this gifted education program, so that our grandmother taught. So we would invite sort of all of our friends and classmates from that every year to come up the hill, as we would say, and participate in our big Halloween bashes that we would put on. And so do you want to elaborate a little bit more, Trevor, on some of the traditions you'd mentioned? I mean,
there was never really any hard itinerary. I definitely recall making a couple of years in a row, like printing out on a computer these cards and giving them out to the friends and having like, okay, this is the place, you know what it's about. And we would just kind of go through it. I mean, there was bowls of candy all around, people just kind of hanging out, listening to music. Yeah, we would do donut on a string, get some of those varieties of donuts, sometimes the cinnamony or chocolatey ones, all the powder on it, but I get all over your face, and just tie it up with some twine and hang it over someone, and then they're like, without using their hands or anything, they got to just go up there and try to get at it with their teeth, and they'll start spinning around, and it's sort of a team effort in that way. And likewise with the apple. Yeah. When the apple bobbing, and a trick I learned from a friend, I don't remember who, is if you just get in there and you push one against the wall really quick and hold up there with your teeth and come out, you can get it done in record time. And once I did that, it was pretty much OP. It was like the wave dashing of apple bobbing. Everyone else just had to work around that, essentially.
I remember you being really good at apple bobbing.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you would go in and like almost immediately come out with an apple. It was not even a contest.
Yeah.
I never did apple bobbing.
Oh.
I've never done it.
Really?
Not once in my entire life. I have an extreme aversion to getting my face wet.
Mm-hmm.
And swimming and any of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I always had, even though you're not like, as I understand it, you're not like inhaling a bunch of water when you do apple bobbing,
it's like you're getting waterboarded for a fraction of a second to get some food. So
okay. Okay, so you're getting a little water intake, but I always imagined it as kind of that experience of like, the discomfort of almost inhaling underwater kind of freaked me out. So I never really tried it before. Maybe I owe it to myself to try it someday.
Yeah.
But I always kind of left it to the experts like you.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think if there would be a way to do it without, because they're bobbing. I mean, they have to be in a fluid. You'd have to use one of those like super special fluids that like imitates amniotic fluid or something, and you're able to inhale it, which would be insanely expensive and disgusting. But you might finally be able to live that dream.
That's right. What's the Da Vinci Code author?
Dan
Brown.
Yeah.
The Dan Brown book.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we'd have to do that approach to get me to do it.
Yeah.
But I definitely remember cheering you guys on and people just being absolutely drenched, and we do it out on our grandparents' deck, so it wasn't too messy for all the splashing that happened. But it was always a big affair to cheer people on for the apple bobbing contest and that sort of thing. And what else? Like you said, the piñata, of course, always fun to have the big Halloween piñata.
Yeah, for me, I have a photo still to this day, not on me, but I think at our home, our shared parents' house. It's something, because like once you got like enough upper body strength, it was all over. I mean, the kids, it stops. I mean, it stopped being a thing once we were like in our teen years because of this. But I have a photo, and it's me and two. I think it might be you and maybe one or two of our other friends. I've got my leg. It's like a mob execution. I stomped on the thing and just destroyed it.
Curb stomping the piñata. Yeah, I definitely remember that. And of course, you've got your little things, just like costume contests for different categories of best costume, most creative, etc. We would have certain foods that would always make appearances. Our grandmother would make these cookies that looked like severed fingers, with like almond slivers that were the nails with like blood to keep them. It was like a sugary red kind of paste that would stick the almond nail to the severed finger cookies, and those are really good. We had, of course, like a blood punch where we'd fill a rubber glove with fluid and have it kind of sit down in the punch to make it look like there was like a red severed hand down in the drink. We would carve out oranges and make them decorate them with like markers to make them look like pumpkins, and fill them with like orange sherbet, and then eat out of the
I forgot about
little
that.
mini pumpkins.
Yeah, those are good.
That was really tasty. What are some other foods? Not candy necessarily, but like foods that you remember?
Well, on the drink side, I know you gave such a great list. I don't know if I missed it, but like the black Kool-Aid.
Oh right, like the graveyard drink or whatever.
It was. I think basically, I mean, if you combined any two dark colors, you'd probably get this. But what I distinctly remember was orange and purple, and then it comes out looking like dark purple, like night colored, basically. And I don't think. Because we never really messed around with dry ice, but I feel like there was something that you could have put in there that would have made it like steam or smoke or something. Every year, Betty Crocker or whoever would put out like, oh, here's all these Halloween recipes you can make, and I stopped getting those because I still hadn't made half the things than the ones I picked up 20 years ago. But those are always such a fun source of that stuff. That's probably where one of us learned how to make those dirt cups with the worms in them and the crushed Oreos and everything. Simple but effective.
That was a classic.
Yep. Yeah, we had an office party, Halloween office party. Yeah, the Jell-O, and you add the worms, and that's always good. As far as like dishes, like proper entrees, I don't know that we had anything in particular one way or the other. I think it was just an evening of eating candy. Right. There might have been some pizza involved, as one does, ordering some Domino's or something like that. But for me, it definitely was always something snack adjacent and just kind of reveling in that being something that was okay for a night or two.
Yes. There were little things. We had these like very old, I don't know if it was like Good Housekeeping or what, but these old booklets of Halloween recipes that had to have been probably from like the 90s or something that we would draw a lot of those recipes from. I think one of the only other ones that I can remember off the top of my head was that it was like a wrap. Like almost like a turkey wrap kind of thing, but it looked like a snake that had been like diced up into pieces.
Oh, cool.
With like a head. Yeah. And we would you take parts of like the snake body and eat that.
Nice.
Things of that nature. But yeah, I love all things about Halloween but I also love food, and so the creative recipes like that I always really looked forward to. Yeah. And Halloween cookies and sugar cookies and things like that that we would sometimes make with decorations on them. But yeah, a lot of great memories of the different parties that we would host there. Do you have any memories of particular costumes you did that you were really proud of?
Sure. I don't know. I mean, the earliest I go back, I don't know the earliest. Like, I have pictures of me as a little baby wearing something. I want to say the earliest costume I remember having was the Scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz, because it was it was mostly a matter of just wearing overalls and sticking a bunch of straw in there. So I remember leaving a small trail all around town going trick-or-treating with straw coming out of me. But recently, just for the heck of it, for the season, I was going back and I was trying to figure out costumes that I'd had for about the last 15 years or so. And the furthest that those go back to me is I did do Link from A Legend of Zelda. Had a lot of fun with that. That would have been right around the same time Twilight Princess came out. So I had a little rupee sack of light bright pegs and a little fairy in a bottle, and I got the sword. And really, I mean, for the time, it was kind of a whole process, and I had a good time with that. And Jeff from Earthbound. I mean, again, a lot of video game characters, but I'd throw some other stuff in there too. Cannot figure out what it was for 2010. That record appears to have been scrubbed from history. I don't know if it was. I don't know what happened there, but
data expunged.
It was redacted from the records of Halloween. As far as like my earlier years wearing costumes, whatever you could figure out around the house, if inspiration struck you, go to the craft store, sometimes pick up some stuff to put some things together. I think our grandmother might have actually helped with the Link hat, sewing some of that stuff together, because I sure as heck didn't do that unless I forgot that skill from Boy Scouts. But
yeah. I remember, like, I think we've always kind of been this way, but a lot of my memories of costumes were of like the design of them. And how much fun it was just to try to make them, because I think a lot of folks, and I don't blame them, and there were definitely years, now and then where we would do this, especially when we were really young. But I think a lot of folks have the tradition of going out and buying like a set. Like they'll go out and they'll buy, like, I'm going to be a pirate, so I'm going to go buy the pirate costume. But I feel like in our family we were really lucky and also really creative in that we made a lot of the costumes ourselves. And kind of did it from scratch. Like it wasn't the best costume, but like I have a memory of our grandmother helping me make like a Kirby costume that was like sewn together, and I used like fabric pins to create the eyes and the dots on the cheeks and the mouth, and had the little digits to put my hands into with the Kirby's little nubs for his hands. And had kind of that Kirby costume, or what else? I did Geno one year, because Geno from Super Mario RPG is one of my favorite all-time video game characters. So I went as Geno one year and made the hat and did the makeup on the face and dyed my hair, and that one I was really proud of at the time. But I think the making of costumes I really enjoy as much as the creativity and trying to decide like what to dress up as. I think probably if I'm speaking of like the costume that you've done over the years that I was most impressed by, I think you know the answer to this already, but it was that Babadook costume.
Oh, I did a
that you
Babadook.
did.
Yeah. The Babadook.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I impressed myself there, which was, again, it was one of those years where I really wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, and I had seen that. People who haven't seen it, it's an Australian horror movie, and the titular being is sort of a metaphor for grief, and it's looks like an old vaudeville type white face, like having the Dr. Caligari looking dude. I happened to have a pea coat. I don't remember if I got the pea coat for the costume or if I already had it or some other third thing, but black coat, black hat, probably the most makeup I've ever put on. I'm not saying I won't try to top that at some point for something else, but whited out the face, put like black stuff in my teeth. I think I might have consulted like an honest to goodness makeup tutorial, but I was like, I just got this look and I wanted to lock in for it, and I took some pictures of it that people have said are legitimately unsettling, so I was like, cool. And then I wore it to a college party where most people were kind of just, law school, so they were a little more kind of straight edge. And there were some goofy costumes. It became apparent to me, like, oh, people don't know who I am. They don't recognize me. Like, I was so heavily...
Right.
I remember, like, somebody Trevor mentioned something. I was like, oh, they don't know that that's me. Like, they don't know that they're talking to me.
You're undercover.
Yeah, I was like, and I could have gotten all kinds of dirt on me, but I really felt good about it because it was a creative, like, it was based on something, but I put the elbow grease in to put it together, and to see people like enjoy it or be frightened by it, which in Halloween I think are the same, one and the same, was really gratifying in its own way.
Definitely, yeah. I know I was super creeped out by it. I had not seen the movie, but I didn't need to be so disturbed by how well you did.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. I have some memories of costumes that because you were talking about like enjoying other people's reactions to the costume and whatnot, and it sparked a memory in me of, this isn't really Halloween, but like we've also done cosplaying at things like the Penny Arcade Expo.
Yep.
And I've had some years where I went as certain characters like Luigi or Little Mac or things like that. And it is a lot of fun for people who don't know you to come like running up to you and be like, oh, can I get a photo with you? And like, oh, you did such a great job. Like, it's such a great feeling to work really hard on putting a costume together from scratch and to have people really admire that and want to engage with you. So that's really cool that you had that reaction.
Yeah, and I think that's to your point, kind of a commonality in those two things. People, like creative people, I would say, and people that have a lot of skill or passion for costumes or makeup or something of that nature. That's really a time where they get to shine, and it's so fun to see it and have it be normalized, I guess. Like, I'm not saying I want people to be like that all the time, but like, it's fun for a little while to be in this world where you can walk down the street and there's a decent chance you're going to see someone dressed like an alien or a bag of M&Ms or Alvin from Alvin and the Chipmunks. I mean, like, it creates a chaotic atmosphere, which culturally is kind of what that time of the year is all about. Halloween is one of those things where, like, I'm glad that it exists, because if we tried to invent it now, it would never happen. Like, you could probably say that about a lot of things, but just, again, trick-or-treating is such an insane thing. Like, we have all these stories. I mean, I don't know if nostalgia is the right word, but like, we just keep getting this cycle of razor blade to candy bar, whatever. Like, you're the people sending the kids out there. Like, you can just not do that. It's this weird double think thing where it's like, we have to have this tradition of the kids going around getting candy from strangers, but also we're going to invent all of these stories and moral panics about what's happening. It's like, well, you could just not do that. I like trick-or-treating, but I'm not anti-trick-or-treating, but you do the trunk-or-treating. Like, that's a modern compromise I've seen some people do. Maybe it's a little tamer, but kids love getting candy. They love running around in costumes being silly. Like, that provides that, I would say. So we do need to preserve that in some form.
I agree. I think that trick-or-treating is something that is a fun part of fun part of the holiday that I think is good to keep going. It is a way, I think, to look at it in a positive aspect. It's a way to build community and,
sure, yeah,
and to encourage people to be giving. It's the funny premise of trick or treat, but in reality, it's you're being giving and generous and providing things to other people and to young people and you obviously want to be safe about it, especially with very young kids. But I think it is a way to create community bonding. It's fun too, just for I guess to jump over to another topic, because we were talking about the way that we decorated our parties. I really like passing through neighborhoods where people go crazy with their Halloween decorations, doing all the wild stuff on their porches and front yards. The trend of ever larger skeletons, 10 feet tall, 15, 20 feet tall skeletons. In people's yards. I think that's hilarious.
People are going to find those someday, and it's going to propel those conspiracy theories about giants.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's gonna really confuse some people to dig those up someday. But even just the other day, I was passing through a neighborhood and somebody had this huge looming, almost like it was like a big Grim Reaper that was like lit up, and it was animatronic, so he was like moving around and doing stuff.
Yeah, holy moly! I mean, the tech on some of this stuff now, we're approaching the point where it's like you're going to a Haunted Mansion ride or a haunt or something, but it's on someone's yard. But I mean, I got no problem with it as long as it's not like. Because I'm trying to think, like, other times of the year, people put stuff on their yard, and sometimes it can be super annoying, like lights going everywhere for Christmas and stuff. I feel like of Halloween, it's... Ironically, it's often more subdued. Like, people aren't having, like... I mean, they might have, like, a woo thing going, like a ghost or a bat noise or something, but I don't know that I've ever... Let me put it this way. I don't know that I've ever, like, walked by Halloween decorations and been like, well, that's annoying. It's more like, oh, that's cool, or oh, that's spooky. Like, I mean, do you disagree?
I think again, if it's something that's like motion activated that says a bunch of stuff,
oh,
like the talkings, because like if you go to like Spirit Halloween now, it is pretty annoying. Like, and of course it's concentrated there because they're selling it all. But if you're just trying to mind your own business and it's some clown or whatever that's like yelling these phrases at you every time, like
that's true.
I could see that driving me nuts if I was like the neighbor or the person that had to be around that all the time.
I'm driving through the suburbs, like I don't live there, and I'm not like walking down the street with the sack. So that's true. I'm getting the tourist's experience. I don't have to live next to the guy with the 12-foot tall Grim Reaper.
Yeah,
it's blocking my sight line. The HOA is gonna have a fit.
Yeah, but yeah, I wouldn't say generally that I see the decorations as being as in your face as like Christmas lights and things like that, because it is meant to be darker and more foreboding and ominous and less kind of, poppy, super duper bright in your face, and maybe as loud as some of the Christmas stuff can be. I guess a person could do that with Halloween stuff and have strobe lights and whatnot, but I guess I just don't feel like I see it as much.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure they're out there, like just if only because they're trying to go viral. But yeah, I think that subtlety, and that's kind of the paradox of spooky stuff in general, is it can be loud, that big jump scary type stuff, or it can be subtle. I think that subtlety in Halloween decorations and subtlety in horror in a broader sense is something valuable and unique to it. Like I think that Halloween, because it is like predominantly a nighttime activity and it's something that's understated. It's I often appreciate the places that have just a couple of good decorations that are really well done, or they have something that they go all out, or it's just a house that happens to be spooky and abandoned and it looks like that all the time.
Yeah, I like a mix of the silly, cartoonish sort of Nightmare Before Christmas-esque kind of oogie boogie type decor, and then the ones that try for the more not serious per se, but the more grounded kind of realistic way that they make it spooky. There was another place that I passed yesterday evening had something that was actually to me like truly disturbing.
Okay.
Which was they had created in their front yard. The rest of the decor was like pretty subtle and understated, but they had created in their front yard. It looked like a circle of like little spirit people sort of wrapped entirely in white, and it was kind of bound around the neck to create like the general sense of there being some kind of head, and they were all just sort of standing in a circle, kind of like holding hands, like staring towards the ground. And it was really unsettling because they had like almost no features, and there were just these little people sort of just standing in a circle, like looking at something, and it was like, oh, I gotta keep driving, like I'm not stopping here.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it looked like it was, again, it was something that they maybe homemade decor, but it was like, oh, that's kind of freaky.
Yeah, no doubt.
What are your thoughts on haunted houses, as far as them like attractions of a haunted house, or that you walk through?
Sure. I mean, I have a couple thoughts about that. I mean, I think conceptually they're super interesting. It must be a lot of fun. I can imagine it being a lot of fun to be the kind of person who sets that up and is a part of it. I don't really actually want any part in it on the participant side. I have a pretty high tolerance for horror in a lot of formats, but for me it's the remove of the screen or of the page that's important. If I'm in an environment where even if someone is legally not allowed to touch me, if I'm still having stuff jumping out at me, or I'm like walking through a physical space, I don't really care for that. Like maybe it's just all like the first time I went on a roller coaster with a loop, and it's not that big of a deal. But I feel the same way about virtual reality video games. Like if you put me in that space, then it's kind of on another level for me. And ironically, I don't feel that way. Like, there are places in real life, like alleys at 2 a.m, where I don't get really scared. Like, I mean, I look like me and I'm 6'2", so maybe that's a factor. But real life scary places don't bother me as much as the fake ones, because the fake ones, like, yes, it is heightened. Like, there might be a guy with a clown mask and a chainsaw who's going to come out, and even if I know that nothing is going to happen, just that experience rattles me. And maybe there's a little bit of that looking sheepish in front of your friends or somebody else when you make a face or a noise that you usually don't in those situations. So yeah, short answer is I'd be open to it maybe with friends or a date or something, but probably not solo. And you can forget about those supposed extreme ones, because that's just the plot of a whole subgenre in its own right.
Yeah, I don't watch horror movies nearly as much as you do, so the thought of me experiencing it in a more immersive form than even a film is a no for me. I feel like my reaction would be sort of a fight or flight, probably more towards fight. Like, if someone lunges at me out of nowhere, I feel like my instinct is going to be to try to sock them in the face.
Yeah.
And then I'd feel bad, because of course it's just an actor. It's not actually someone trying to hurt me. But I think that I would be more threatened than thrilled. And yeah, it's never been for me. I think the closest memory I have to experiencing that sort of thing was when, and this is so lame, but we made like our own sort of haunted house walkthrough at that private school that we went to as kids.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's right.
And we did this thing where, like, we turned the attic of like the small sort of schoolhouse building that we were in into like a walk-through haunted house attraction, and we had people positioned at different spots that would do different freaky things. Like, we had a guy who's, a friend of ours, who was supposed to make it look like his severed head was like sticking out through like a table or something. We had sort of we had rigged up what was supposed to be a crystal ball that would levitate, and we used like a really thin string through like a loop on the ceiling as an anchor point, but we didn't have a good way to attach it to the crystal ball, so we just used like an entire roll of Scotch tape to tape the string to the top of the crystal ball. So you're looking at it and it's just like 50% tape, but it's like, ooh, like making it levitate in the air by pulling on the other end of the string.
Whatever
and it was
works.
Such a campy effect. But I remember having a lot of fun like building that haunted house attraction.
Yeah, no, I myself, when we would have those parties, I loved setting the stage. Like, I think in another life, I would be like a movie set designer or something, because I really loved like creating that space and like being like where you put the spider webs or the figurines, and like just setting the scene. Yeah.
That's we'll probably do a deeper dive into this at some point, but like Disneyland with the Haunted Mansion, that's probably my favorite, or one of my favorite attractions at Disneyland, and it is because of that attention to detail and how spooky it all is, but how fun it all is as well. And it doesn't ever rise to the level of like I'm legitimately really really scared. It's just like
there's still parts of it, if only because it's super loud, but I do get I get my hackles up a little bit.
I do get a little jumpy on the part where the guy hanging from the ceiling, the lightning flashes, and then he falls from the ceiling. Yeah. Or some of the guys jumping out from behind the tombstones.
Those are the ones that get me. Yeah.
Catch me off guard. And then, of course, we won't get too much into it this episode, but we can talk about the differences in other countries where their haunted mansions go significantly harder than the ones in America. But anyway, haunted houses, and some people are really into them. You mentioned too the weird examples where people are like, this one's so scary you have to sign a waiver because you could have a heart attack and die. And so, like, there was a guy relatively recently who got busted for one of those, and I think he was just like kidnapping people.
Oh god.
Like, he was just straight up, they were like paying him money, and then he would like kidnap them to like some like middle of nowhere place, and then essentially he would like, I won't get into it, but he was like basically torturing people, and it was like, oh well, like if you want to win the prize you got to endure all these things I'm going to do to you. And it's like,
are you sure you're not just describing the
fun anymore?
That sounds just like you're describing the plot of a Saw movie.
I mean, it's sort of, that is a horror movie. I mean,
what about for apples?
Anyway, what about rebels? Yeah, there's people out there that take it too far. What else? We pumpkins, of course. Yep. We've talked around it a little bit, but that was another big tradition for us, was pumpkin carving, and we would get those. What was the name of the
pumpkin
little
masters?
booklets where you flip? Pumpkin.
That was the big
Masters.
brand. Still is, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, Pumpkin Masters patterns, and I always tended to pick the ones that were a little less intimidating, and you often did the ones that were more expert level.
Well, I mean, it was a spectrum. I think that it's like a scale. It was like a scale of pumpkins for difficulty. So it was like 1 to 4 pumpkins or something. And at the time, I would definitely get a little more daring in some years. But even at the time, there were ones that I was wary of. But because so many of those things would come with each packet, and I would only make like 2 or 3 a year. And there were years where I moved away and I just wasn't doing it anymore. I still have to this day patterns. I've got patterns from the Clinton administration in my closet right here. I've got dozens of these things still, and there are some that I probably won't do because they're too simple or there's something about them I just don't like as much. But the last couple of years, I really looked myself in the mirror and I was like, I think I'm ready to start doing the difficult patterns. And it's so the light makes so much difference.
Yeah.
Because you'll make a mistake, you'll make a little, you have to fudge some stuff, and it's like, I can't do this. And then you put the candle in there, and something about it smooths it out, and it like adds dimension to it. And I've tried to take pictures of these and put them on social media when I do it, but I'm like, dang, I really did that. And it's from a pattern, and no matter how much Vaseline you put on there, it kind of starts to wither after a while. But for a while, you can look at that and be like, wow, I made that. That's cool.
Yeah, it really is that magical, Halloween. You talk about Halloween magic and so on. That is one of the most magical moments of Halloween to me, is working really hard on a pattern, and then that moment of truth where you put the candle in, you turn out the lights, or you set it outside or whatever, and you finally get to kind of appreciate the final product. And yeah, we've definitely had some over the years. Certainly you've had some ones where it's like, that's crazy, like that is a legitimate piece of art.
I'm going to drop some of the video for it when we hit this spot. So I'll get those pictures.
There we go. Yeah. You can share some highlights of some of the ones you've done over the years. But I can't think off the top of my head if there was ever like a particular pattern that I was like, oh man, that's my greatest work. But I've had some ones over the years that I was really proud of. One of the ones recently I did was actually a raccoon of all things, and I thought that was really adorable.
Sure.
Little raccoon that I'd made. But I definitely love the pumpkin carving and getting to appreciate the finished products as well. Not so much into pumpkin painting. I've seen some people do that.
Yeah, pumpkin painting, and also this thing that started at some point where you shave off only parts of it to get layers of light. That's where it starts, like Michelangelo stuff. You start losing me. But people that pull that off, I mean, it is an art. It is a form of sculpting.
Yeah. I like some of the ones too where they'll do something in the front and something in the back.
That was a thing for a while. We had one kit of those that was specifically for that, and then also ones where it's like, well, you can get a smaller pumpkin and put it next to this one and put another pattern on there. It's like, you know what? I built a Lego set at that point. I'm sorry, I was one pumpkin, one pattern.
Yeah, I'm not going to that extent. Or the cop out Mr. Potato Head ones where you just kind of spiked into them different appendages and eyes and stuff like that.
Oh, there's that. No, I'm sorry. For a second there, I thought you were going to... So there were ones... They made ones, too, where you peel out stickers and you put them on there. And that's just, 6 and 1/2 dozen of the other as far as the pattern. The classic style that I think that you and I are both familiar with is that it's a sheet of paper, and you prick holes along the lines, like connect the dots in reverse, basically. And then that becomes what you cut across with varying knives. And then you've got the little plastic spoon in there to get the guts out. It's a whole process, but the result was rewarding.
Yes, absolutely. Well, what else? Corn mazes. I know that was another thing I was making a note of when we were preparing for this episode. That's not something I have a lot of strong memories of. I don't know if I'm a big corn maze guy. I think of movies like this, Signs and whatnot when I think of corn mazes. Or
haunted hay rides. And I mean, again, they're spiritually like... The only secondary location that I'm really going to for a Halloween gathering is a theater to watch a spooky movie, or like a reasonably well-lit house party. Not a cornfield, not a barn, not a haunted hayride, not any of the haunts. I think that's what it is for me, is like going to a place that is supposed to be spooky. Like you can have spooky things in a party, but if it's like, no, we're going to a secondary location that is supposed to scare you, like, well, no. I mean, unless it's like, it's a bit macabre, but like maybe part of a graveyard. Fair enough. Most of the things that I know ghosts aren't real.
Do you?
Yeah, but otherwise, it needs to have party needs to be the predominant aspect of the Halloween party.
Yes, I agree for sure. What's because I know that you had some things that you were hoping to discuss on this subject as well. What's any other topics that you can think of on the subject of Halloween
sure.
or Halloween's adjacent?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's Halloween. I think of Halloween, but I also think just in terms of like spooky stuff for kids or spooky things that kids enjoy, because Halloween is something that people of all ages, of course, enjoy, but it seems in some ways to have a lot of cachet with young people, and it kind of makes me think in terms of about like what kids are kind of, you know, what kind of other spooky things or other spooky media are kids consuming in the past versus now. We've touched on aspects of this before. We had a little bit of a tangent about Goosebumps books, I think, when we discussed gross out media and book fairs and things, because a lot of those kinds of gross out stories also overlap with the spooky stories. I mean, it stands to reason. You've got slime and hairy monsters, and that was the style at the time. But I think for me, yeah, I mean, I definitely can think of a lot of times where I would catch an episode of some show or read some book and be like, oh, a little bit rattled for a 9-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, you know, Goosebumps has its fair share of legitimately scary things, and the covers, you know, a lot of the cover art. I'm not sure I've ever really looked up who the artist was behind those covers.
It's something Jacobus, I think. I watched a video recently about him, and yeah, no, he had it made with those. Yeah.
There was some where I was like, as a kid, going to the library and kind of, you know, picking ones off of the shelf to see which one to check out. Some of them, it was like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for this one. Like some of those. I mean, the classic example, which I think has probably already come up on this show at some point, but Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and the art, especially for those, was pretty disturbing.
We had a friend of the family that had a couple of those books, and I sort of came across them in the bookshelf, and I was just like, what on God's name is this? Like, it's just such a uniquely unsettling thing to exist. And I think there was even a whole documentary about it, just being like, what is up with these books? And I think it really definitely did inform some of my own interest in horror media and horror storytelling later. Specifically, like, I mean, the Goosebumps books are basically novella. I mean, they're not even, I mean, they're kids' books, fairly speaking, but like they're not that large, of a font's large. Like, you could consider some of those essentially short stories or novellas by adult standards. And I think that's, or at the very least, they're episodic or anthological, because there's so many of them, and the idea was that you would have them all on the library shelf or your home shelf. Like, they're spiritually, it's like the Twilight Zone for kids, basically. And a lot of those stories were openly inspired by Twilight Zone episodes. And I think that's really what influenced a lot of the media that I like and that I write, for that matter, which is like short, weird stories. And I think that kids were, you know, your attention span, like you're picking up on that more than you are longer stories, and those images that will stick in the head, especially when you're at a formative age and it's the first time you've seen like a zombie in something, or had one of those twist endings where something just awful happens to a person and then that's it. Like,
there's no resolution.
Yeah, and those kinds of stories are obviously very common, and they'll continue to be. But when you first come across them as a kid, it can kind of rattle you a little bit. And if it's not something, I think a smart author or a smart publisher knows where the lines are drawn. I don't think that I would genuinely say that there's anything that I read when I was young that like actively traumatized me. Like there were times where I'd have like caught an episode of Tales from the Dark Side or something when I shouldn't have, and I had a hard time sleeping later. But usually it was something I could handle, or it was something where I was like, oh, that was kind of gross. But I think about it later in a positive way, like, oh yeah, that was a pretty spooky moment, or that was a really clever kind of monster to have.
Yeah, I think I've also been fortunate, you could say, and not having any memories of being particularly scarred by any piece of media. I mean, there were movies we watched as a kid that we probably shouldn't have been watching at that age.
So it goes.
like The Sixth Sense, you know, we were watching that when we were, you know, very young, and I definitely was, you know, doing it through the, you know, peeking of the fingers.
Yeah.
But we did see it.
It's got a vomiting ghost in it. It's still something I haven't really seen done outside of maybe Casper.
Yeah, I'm not big on that. But then I also remember being scared by E.T., so I'm pretty easily rattled.
It's so funny because for me it's like just the way it's like, I guess maybe, I mean, that scene, I know the one you're describing, speaking of cornfields or grass, they're in somewhere with tall plants. I mean, he appears and shrieks and everyone runs away. But for me, it's like I get older, and the part that upsets me more is like at the end where he's just like sick and dying, and I'm like, oh, mortality. You know, it's
oh, mortality.
This pale E.T., is struggling. Yeah, I mean, it's
Sick
a
easy.
film with something for everybody. But yeah, definitely there would always be certain scenes in certain movies that I had trouble with, and even I really didn't start consuming a lot of horror content, or at least like horror films, until about grad school. Like I think I would kind of flirt with some of that when I was younger, but it wasn't really something that I seriously got into until college or a little bit later, just because it just wasn't. I even growing up, like to this day, like 2000s horror media doesn't really do it for me. A lot of it is timeless, and then a lot of it is very of its time. But this goes for any kind of story.
Yeah, for sure. Games wise, actually, I think I have more memories of
Sure.
at least some moments of being pretty freaked out by stuff. One story in particular that I like to tell, it probably is not something you enjoy hearing, but there was an incident with Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. For those of you who've played that classic, there's a place you go called Kakariko Village, and it's a small town, and in the back of it there's this graveyard, and you can push or you can like move this grave to go down into this crypt, and down in the crypt are these enemies that are probably, in my opinion, some of the scariest video game enemies ever created. And they are these creatures called Redeads, and they are essentially zombies, but they are sort of emaciated to the point where you can see like their ribs and bones and sinew, and they sort of just really slowly like shuffle around and moan, and it's this like really unpleasant like like moaning sound. And they have these faces that look like almost like a carved wooden mask with like two holes for eyes, and then this like chomping looking teeth. And if they sense you in their presence, they turn, and I won't emulate it to protect your ears, but they produce this like ear splitting like shriek.
They're like a banshee, basically. Yeah.
Like a banshee, and it's so loud and scary that Link is literally frozen with fear, and he can't move, but they can, and they'll keep like walking up to you, and if they get close enough to you, they will like jump onto your back and start like gnawing at your neck, like basically trying to like kill you. And it's very disturbing. And as a child, I was not prepared for that on psychological, emotional, spiritual, on all levels. So, watching Trevor play this as the older sibling, he was, just kind of, minding his own business, trying to get through this area. And I saw this happening, and that thing shrieked and jumped onto Link, and I just went, ah! And I just leaped. I leapt at the Nintendo 64 and immediately shut off the system because I just couldn't handle it. And Trevor, you were so upset with me. Like, why did you do that? Like, because you didn't save. Like, lost all this progress. But I couldn't handle it.
I gained back whatever progress. I lost. It's all good. But they're definitely. Yeah, no. The only time I've ever, this is a more recent example. There's only really been one time. Well, there was one Stephen King story I had to stop reading because I was about to throw up. And then
because
there was
of the story.
Yes.
Oh, jeez.
It's called The Raft.
I don't know if I want to ask
I'm not going to describe what happens, but there's a story called The Raft, and if you know, you know. But more recently, there's a found footage horror movie called Antrim, and the fake premise of it is that it's a cursed movie from the 70s, but like Macbeth, like people watch it or try to play it, and bad stuff happens. So there's all this like material, just like this, basically a warning scream. It's like, we're not responsible for what happens when you watch this. Basically, I was like, I know this is fake, but this is really getting to me. This whole like the framing device. It's like, if the movie is fake. I like found footage movies because I just like the authenticity that it seems to have in its own little way. And this was that, but just something about the framing of it. Like, I was just like, I'm not gonna be able to sleep after I watch this. I'm already like on edge, and it's like 10-15 minutes in, so I just turned it off, and I haven't. That's the only time I've had other movies I stopped watching because they just sucked. But that's probably the only time I had to turn something off because I was like scared. The video games, again, more recent topic, but like PT clones really get to me because I know what the inside of a house at 2 a.m. looks like. I don't know what a graveyard or haunted mansion full of bats and zombies looks like. It feels more real. So Visage is one of those games. It's kind of, again, a PT clone. And just something about like just random things will fall or a thing will jump on you, and like nowhere feels safe, but it looks like a place that you've been as a kid, like that. Yeah, no. Like I'm just when the entire time it's fun for a stream. I do spooky game streams sometimes, but at a certain point, if I'm just doing this alone, I'm like I just feel like I'm on edge the entire time, and it's stressful.
Oh man, yeah, I don't know if I would seek out that experience willingly. I've already had enough nightmares about waking up in the middle of the night in a place that's like my house but not quite, and then something scary happens.
Yeah.
Were there any like movies growing up as a kid that had scenes that were scary, but it wasn't like a horror movie, but it was something that still was like almost unintentionally scary?
I think there's definitely some examples. I would say stuff that it's kind of meant to be spooky in its own way, like nightmare sequences in media always kind of unsettled me. Like even if the imagery itself isn't actively frightening, just like the dream logic of like something horrible happening to somebody very quickly, or like just I can name a lot of different examples. I know because they put you in that mindset of like that brain space that you're in when you have a bad dream where things don't really make sense and it's like awful, but you don't know and you can't really articulate in what way, or it distorts reality in some way. And that's why I think a lot of the best spooky media is the kind that imitates that state of mind without seeming just like confusing for the sake of itself or incongruous or something in that way.
Right. Yeah, for sure. One of the first examples that comes to mind for me is The Dark Crystal.
Oh yeah,
which does have some scenes that are meant to be sort of suspenseful and scary. I mean, it's sort of high fantasy. You've got your Jim Henson Muppet kind of characters, but done in a little bit more of a realistic fashion than usual. Obviously, it's still a little fantastical and cartoonish in certain features, but something about the puppets and the Muppets or whatever you want to call them really don't sit right with me. And there's like some scenes where like they're being like attacked at one point, like one of them gets like tortured with this like I think it wasn't like a light or something that causes them to like artificially like
decay
age,
or something, or
decay or something, and it's like with this rotting Muppet and this red light with these like dead eyes, and it's just like I don't need that. Like,
well, practical, but it's like the 80s, like 70s to 80s like fantasy and horror media, that specific point where effects were at with like practical effects and also like stop motion and stuff, it looks real enough that it becomes unsettling when it's used for things like gore or monsters or transformations or body horror or something like it. Yeah. It has a tactile nature to it that really just that's the only thing for me. Like really, to this day, I really struggle with spooky stuff, spooky movies that don't have like convincing practical effects, because if it's CGI, it just doesn't really work. Like I'm sure there's times where it's done so slick I don't notice it. But unless it's like trying to look glossy or trying to look goofy, I think that I still respect the craft of putting that together. And it is something unique to film, because on a stage production, it's really far away. In a video game, everything looks like everything else. In a book, you imagine it. Like in a movie or a TV show, if you want to have that effect and make it stick, you have to kind of put that elbow grease in.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I'm always a strong what's the word, proponent of advocate, there you go, a strong advocate for practical effects. I think they add so much, just sort of it anchors it in reality. It makes the stakes of whatever's happening feel that much more urgent and real, even though it's a movie at the end of the day.
Yeah.
In terms of cartoons, I mean, it's obvious answer: Courage the Cowardly Dog. I mean, so many moments in Courage the Cowardly Dog that were just downright unsettling, creepy, just and sometimes just completely out of context. Like a character would just be doing something, and then all of a sudden they would cut to this like ultra realistic, ultra freaky looking, distortion of them, and then it would just go back to being a kid's cartoon again. And
but that's what's so kind of genius about that show, is the whole like routine of the episode is the main character it's about fear, and it's about like comedically. Like you're amused at Courage having this absurd, cartoonish reaction to something, but it's also like, well, that is also scary. Like that is how I would probably react in that situation if I was a little potato-shaped dog that couldn't, openly communicate with anybody. Like he's heroic, but he's
yeah, he's heroic, but he's also obviously scared by a lot of things. But he's also like sort of only the weirdly like the only sane character in the show.
Yes.
Because Mariel, for the most part, I mean, she gets scared by things sometimes, but like,
Yeah.
she, she's for the most part either like blissfully unaware or like almost overly friendly to everything. And then you got Eustace, who's completely oblivious and is just completely, self-centered to the point where he just almost can't even hardly be afraid of anything most of the time because he's too busy, getting me mallet or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, the characters are so great in that show, and just the art design and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun show. It's got its spooky moments, but that's definitely a fun one.
Just if only just for the classic status, you get some moments like in the old Scooby-Doo show. Some of those guys are a little bit spooky, nothing too intense. I mean, that's honestly a pretty decent happy medium, I would say, because the whole idea is like, again, same situation. It's about people that are. It always ends up being evil landlord or something, but like they are trying to scare people away, and so they're doing these silly. Speaking of effects, like it's a cartoon, but they'll be like, oh, he did this by so and so. Like I did enjoy when they kind of pull the Tropic Thunder with Zombie Island and some of that other stuff where it was just straight up supernatural. But
that's another one that had scary moments as a kid. Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island.
It did.
You find out that they're actually zombies.
That's kind of a genius. The show and the earlier stuff was good because it was always like there was always a rational explanation. But that's what made it kind of fun at the time when it was like, oh, like what. Again, it's kind of like a kid-friendly version of that horror movie Grave Encounters, where it's like, what if people that do this and like everything is always fake, or if they find out it's fake, like what if they actually get into like some real stuff and it doesn't quite go there, but it at the time I remember thinking that was super cool, and even some of like because there's just so many of these, they got Shaggy hanging out with John Cena or something in one of the newer ones. What little bar there was for Scooby-Doo movies has lowered over time, but there were a couple of other ones. There was an alien one. There was one where they go into the internet or something, like Scooby-Doo in cyberspace. Just again, total 1999 tier movies. But I had a lot of fun with those. I had a lot of fun with the character dynamics and the creatures they'd run into. Again, that was something I got into a lot from even something like Pokemon. It's not really spooky, but there are monsters, and they are kind of. Some of them, you read the descriptions of them, they go pretty hard, and even there are moments of spooky activities, kind of doing a lean from cartoons to anime. But there'd be moments in some of those episodes of those shows where you get some ghost Pokemon or something that's a bit spooky, and in that part, they kind of an homage to the Twilight Zone here, or characters. Dying and coming back, and that's more on like the kind of sad side of things than the scary side of things. But when you're a kid and you see that stuff with characters that you care about, especially, that can amplify those feelings.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I remember like the episode with the ghost Pokemon and Sabrina and whatnot, and so, nothing overly scary, but a few parts there was a little like suspenseful, and
sure, yeah,
how they present some of those Pokemon, and of course, don't even get me started on the lore entries for Pokemon that are ghost Pokemon that are kidnapping children and eating their dreams, and trapped souls of the dead. It's just and then there's Pikachu, like
it's like I'm sure there's a million fan things about, but it's like I want to see the Pokemon world, but like is the one we hear about in the Pokedex entries not the one we see on the show? Like I think all of this is it's Pokemon propaganda. They're not showing us the real data.
Pokeganda, whatever you want to call it. Definitely. Well, I think that's a pretty good coverage, I would say, of the landscape of spooky and sort of Halloween horror movies and whatnot. One other one, I guess, while we're just on the general subject of ones, because I was thinking really quickly about Halloween specifically centric ones that we grew up with, and Nightmare Before Christmas, I would say, is probably one of my favorites. I know that's halfway between Christmas and
sure.
Halloween, but I remember really liking that movie growing up, and always enjoying a second viewing of that.
I'm trying to think like Halloween specific movies. I don't know. I know that this has more overlap with General Autumn, but Over the Garden Wall.
I mean, I always think of that as being like a modern sort of fall cartoon, but now that you mention it, it's not exactly modern anymore. It's it is sort of bygone at this point.
Yeah, but going even further back, I know this isn't like something I remember watching like habitually, but it just kind of has Halloween vibes to me. That Tower of Terror Disney movie with Kirsten Dunst.
Oh, I saw that the other day at Scarecrow Video on a shelf, and I was like, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, I have a specific memory of watching it at a sleepover with some friends. I think that you were there too, but like that's another one where it's something that's kind of has a spooky moments, but it is a kids movie through and through, and it's nothing too crazy at the end of the day. But yeah, gosh, I mean that's a really good question. I think that I probably would just incidentally catch, I don't know, maybe Simpsons Treehouse of Horror or something that we rented some episodes of at the store.
Oh, yeah.
Or some other, because it wasn't out then, so they wouldn't have had those kinds of movies, aside from, because, I mean, Tim Burton stuff, some of that I was okay with at the time. You'd think that I would have, like, this ready list, because I watch so much spooky stuff now, but I think at the time, it would have just been whatever was on TV, or I was reading, upping my Goosebumps intake.
I was going to say, we didn't really get into this, but many of you out there, I think, would immediately think of things like Halloween Town or
Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus,
Yeah.
like some of those programs that were very, very popular. And I don't know if I want to say they were more for girls, but they were like, I don't know. I didn't really associate with any of those types of like Disney Channel-esque specials. Maybe it was just a different, crowd or whatever. But I know a lot of folks out there are really into watching those every single year as as a tradition.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. I realized we skipped over the candy discussion. We talked about Halloween food. We went on to other topics. We never actually got into candy. It doesn't have to be a deep dive, because I know we also talked in another episode about, foods and whatnot. But I am curious your thoughts on just like if there's a handful of particular Halloween candies that you remember always being really excited to get when you went trick-or-treating. Were there ones that you were like, I can't believe I'm getting another one of these, bottom of the bucket?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, that is definitely a big question. I mean, it depended on the setting. I would say there probably wasn't, as far as good candies go, there probably wasn't that much difference between those kinds of like what I would enjoy at every times of year. Like candy corn, people get heated about candy corn. It's fine for me, honestly. Like the fact I only really have it around Halloween makes it me not mind it. If I was eating it all the time, I mean, I wouldn't. But if I was, I probably would get even more tired of it. But it's fine. You have a bowl.
I
of
like
it.
candy corn. I don't understand the hate. I think it's become popular to hate candy corn.
Yeah.
But I think it's delicious. It's presentable. It's got a cool like design to it that's like simple but iconic.
You just grab a handful.
Like
it's like nuts or popcorn or something, but it's seasonally specific. And yeah, we'd have that, some popcorn around. For me, it was like it would be the fun size versions of the larger candy bars, because then you can put a bunch in a bowl and kind of grab a handful and start picking at those and put the wrappers in your back pocket or something. I know there were
the total misnomer though, that fun size would be like a quarter of the size of a normal
more
bar.
candy, yes. But I will say, and others have acknowledged this, there were certain kinds of candy that were difficult, if not impossible, to find at anything but a fun size, like a crackle bar. They do exist, but they're full-size crackle bars, as you may have noticed, are pretty rare.
I guess that's true.
Compared to like an Almond Joy or a Snickers. And I want to say, I don't think it's that old. I want to say there was even like a Seinfeld episode or something where someone was like, you never see a full-size crackle. Like it's a known thing. Like this specifically crackle. And I don't know if it's because of the crackling and consistency in question is harder to maintain in a larger size. I really don't know.
Its structural integrity would collapse if you
the
had
crackling
a
it would
full-size
crack. It would turn into a singularity. No, but I guess they're definitely candied apples. That's more on the snack side of things. But like a caramel apple or something like that, that's good too. As far as bad stuff goes, those chalk sticks,
the ones that we always thought looked like cigarettes.
Yes.
Yeah, or like the way they're packaged. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like little white. I don't even know. It's like candy wax, but candy chalk. Like it's 1 degree removed from something that you just put on a wall to stick things on it. I don't.
Yeah, they have hardly any flavor. They look like a drug. I mean, they look like the kind of thing that people would be freaked out that kids would be receiving on Halloween.
Yeah, because there definitely was times where I would get candy, and it might have even been that where I was like, is this a drug? Because I wasn't. It was a brand I'd never heard of, or it was every once in a while that would happen. I would say I didn't dislike pixie sticks, but they're long enough that they kind of throw off the shape of the rest of the bag. And even then, it's like you talk about just mainlining sugar. I mean, that is, even as a kid, I think I was like, oh, how about that? I mean, your mouth just dries out.
Yeah, it got a little hard eventually to like finish it off. I remember just being like overloaded. Definitely things like, Tootsie Rolls, Hershey's Kisses.
Yeah. Cheap chocolate flavored stuff, yeah.
Yeah, some of that kind of stuff. That was always like when you were going through your bag of candy you collected, that was always like, well, I'm going to push that off to the side until I got desperate.
Yeah, I didn't care for Milk Duds, I guess, while you're on the topic.
Yeah.
That's the same thing where it's like, it's not chocolate, it's chocolate tea. But like, I know a chocolate bar, even if it's like American chocolate where it's like 99% milk.
Yeah.
The consistency is like the chewy stuff, or conversely, What are the powdery ones?
Chocolate powder?
No, chocolate. No, I was because Milk Duds are the chewy ones, like your teeth stuck together. What's the one?
Yeah.
Is it malted milk balls where they have like you chew into them and there's almost like a powdery layer, like a firmament?
Yeah, I guess that's like a malt, right?
Yeah, I don't like the texture of that in my mouth.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm not big on that stuff too. It's stuff that like really stuck your teeth together to where you felt like you were gonna like,
Yeah,
remove a crown or something when you opened your mouth.
And hard candy too. Like, I mean, there's a time and a place for hard candy, but I think for me it was like I want to have stuff that I could just consume. And then if you have a warhead or something, then
Jolly
like
Ranchers.
now I got all my snacking has to be oriented around this until it goes down. I mean, like maybe there's somebody who could do the candy
I don't have time
equivalent.
for this.
Well, it's like maybe there's some kid out there that could do the candy equivalent of smoking and drinking at the same time, where you keep like a jawbreaker in your mouth and you're also working on candy with the other side. I never tried that though.
That's a choking hazard.
Or Jolly Rancher, yeah. I mean, peppermints, Jolly Ranchers, again, those almost feel more like a winter snack to me, like something you can have with a hot chocolate. There are brands of hard candy I like, but I think at Halloween I definitely was more like, okay, what's the stuff I can just get right in my system?
Yeah, actually, how can I just mainline this Halloween candy? Yeah, I agree with all your points. Those were definitely, many of those things were sort of my highs and lows of what I got from trick or treating. Yeah, in terms of like bars, if we're talking like even in fun size, I would say maybe I do kind of like Three Musketeers. I know a lot of people are not fans.
I was about to say, yeah.
I like Three Musketeers. Snickers, of course, is a classic.
Twix,
good old Snickers. Twix is very satisfying.
Yes,
a good Twix bar, like the that crunch that you sort of get when you bite into it. It's not as like chewy as other bars, which is like a nice change in sort of the texture of the bar as you're eating it. I do like Twixes.
What's your stance on Kit Kats?
I like Kit Kats.
I like them too. I would say that at least when you get older, it's kind of quaint to think that I'm going to be able to break this thing apart without leaving some massive cracks and smudges all over it. I usually just, maybe it's heretical, but I just put the whole thing in. But they got a good wafery quality to them.
I do find them just a little bit messy because when I'm breaking them and then holding them for a little bit before I eat them, they tend to melt really fast.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're a little bit messy.
Yeah.
I will say. Because other candy bars, you're not really meant to grasp the bar itself. You normally unwrap it and you hold the wrapper. But with Kit Kat, you're meant to hold the pieces. Maybe I need to hurry up and not like be holding it too long. And it
but that's what I think is well suited to the fun size, because then you just get 2 little bars of it. It's a little more manageable, and you can kind of eat it, peel it like a banana.
Yeah. And I just got back from a trip from Japan where I had all these crazy flavors Tokyo banana.
You got spoiled,
strawberry cheesecake and matcha and whatnot.
Yeah, that's where it's at.
Yeah. But anyway, I wanted to make sure that we spent some time discussing at least a little quick dip into Halloween candy, because that's such a crucial part of the holiday. I think we're probably approaching the time for our Bring It Back or Bygone segment.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Because we've been at this for a little bit. What is it you would say that we would be deciding in terms of Bring It Back or Bygone? What aspects of Halloween are you thinking of?
I mean, I think all of it. I think just the tradition itself. There's some people who don't have a high opinion of it, or who want to kind of radically alter a bunch of aspects of it for whatever their reasons. And I would say, again, it's kind of a technicality because from a certain point of view it never left, but I would say bring it back. I mean, bring back kids having in-person gatherings where they're having fun together and doing holiday activities and sharing cool costumes and just having it be a judgment-free zone for people to hang out and be something a little bit different, a little bit weird for a day or two.
Yeah, I agree. I don't. Again, I think you were kind of saying this yourself, but I don't think there's much to bring back, because I think a lot of Halloween has stood the test of time. I think that there is sort of an everlasting need, like you were alluding to earlier, for us to have an occasion where we're putting on costumes and masks, but in another way, it's allowing us to actually take off our costumes and masks and to express ourselves in ways that are normally considered taboo, or topics that you don't normally get to touch on, like, scary things like ghosts and skeletons and death and what happens after death, but also like monsters and things that are strange and unusual that we can't understand, and laughing and having fun with it, and like being lighthearted and jovial, and also finding ways to be creative and taste, the fruits of the harvest season, and all of these things that come together in this very special time of year. And yeah, I think maybe in certain ways, we didn't get too much into it, but maybe in certain ways, there aren't as many maybe gatherings, or people are being overly cautious about certain costumes. I mean, there's certain things, of course, about there's offensive costumes that should have gone away a long time ago, but just like not getting too much of a swing of the pendulum to where we aren't allowed, period, to dress up in kind of wild ways and express ourselves in different ways, and have it be a fun holiday that people can let loose and be expressive, and of course finding a way to do that respectfully, but also to not become too puritanical the other direction. And have fun with it, because on the other thing is people saying that it's satanic practices, or that it's immoral to or sacrilegious to celebrate this pagan holiday or whatever. And it's like, no, it's so secularized now. It's just, we should just enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But and I do think that in a lot of ways, I guess we're bringing up new things even as we do our final segment here. But like you'd mentioned briefly, Trevor, the kind of what are some modern ways that kids are engaging with sort of spooky or scary content. And I think the success of things like Five Nights at Freddy's, or analog horror, and how that's really taken off as like a Gen Z, Gen Alpha genre on major social media platforms like YouTube. It speaks to that need, not just in the Halloween season, but more in general, for us to engage and grapple with things that unsettle us, or make us fearful, or make us have those strong emotional reactions, and seeing how that's experienced both by adults and kids alike is very interesting, and very much seems to not be going away.
So. I think the social aspect we touched on about Halloween parties and about bringing that back and keeping it around also applies to a lot of that media. I mean, it might seem provocative or weird, but what young people are doing is they're going online and they're discussing this stuff. They're talking about backrooms lore and Discord, and making these wikis. Like it represents a hunger for stories and for characters, and also just for the simple thrill of seeing an influencer that you like, freak out when they see something hop out of the Vermida crate. Like it is. Yes, we tend to associate a lot of things that are horror with being alone or being in a dark whatever in the middle of nowhere, but it can. To my point, like the party aspect of it, like it can be something very lively, no matter how strange or macabre the material might seem. And I think we're seeing that now, in the form that it's taking might change over time, but the vibes are the same.
Exactly. Yep. Well, were there any other major themes you were hoping to cover in this episode, Trevor, related to Halloween?
I don't think so. I think we got the whole pumpkin patch picked.
The whole pumpkin patch picked. We've really covered a lot, and quite honestly, there were a number of things that got left out of this discussion on a number of topics and other things as well, because there's so much to talk about. I mean, it's probably one of the oldest holidays, honestly, that's been continuously celebrated up until America. So there's just so much history and culture surrounding it, and we're just doing a surface level discussion of the past few decades or whatever. But anyway, I could talk forever about the fun things related to Halloween, but we better put a pumpkin.
Snuff out the candle.
Expression. Snuff out the candle. Thank you. There's the statement I was looking for. So without further ado, thank you all for tuning in, and hope you all have a very happy Halloween. Stay spooky, stay safe out there. And I've been your co-host, Kyle White.
I'm Trevor White.
And we are the Bygone Bros.
Bye.
Bye.